There is a belief that quietly shapes much of modern life. A belief so common that most people never stop to question it. We assume that speed is power. The faster the answer, the smarter the person. The faster the decision, the stronger the leader. The faster the response, the greater the confidence. Everywhere we look, speed is rewarded. News arrives instantly. Opinions are formed immediately. Conversations become competitions to see who can speak first. And without realizing it, many of us begin to measure strength by how quickly we react. But is that really power? Think about the people who leave the deepest impression on us. The wisest mentor, the calmest parent, the most respected leader. Rarely are they the fastest people in the room. Instead, they possess something quieter, a small space between what happens and how they respond. A moment so brief that most people overlook it, yet powerful enough to change the outcome of a conversation, a relationship, or even a life. The pause. Most people believe their lives are shaped by major decisions, but often, life changes in much smaller moments. A sentence spoken, a message sent, an opportunity accepted, an argument escalated or prevented. And between every event and every response lies a choice that lasts only seconds, yet those seconds can determine everything. If the pause is so powerful, why do so many people struggle to use it? Because emotion rarely arrives quietly. Anger says respond now. Fear says decide now. Pride says defend yourself now. Ego says prove yourself now. Every emotion carries the same message. Act immediately. And in the moment, that urgency feels convincing. A racing heart feels like certainty. A wounded ego feels like truth. A surge of anger feels like justice. But feelings are not always facts, and urgency is not always wisdom. Think about your greatest regrets, the message that should never have been sent, the words that went too far, the decision made too quickly, the relationship damaged by a moment of emotion. Most regrets are born in moments that felt urgent, which raises a difficult question. If immediate reactions create so many problems, why do we keep surrendering to them? Because reacting is natural. The pause is not. The pause asks us to resist impulse, to sit with discomfort, to allow emotion to exist without giving it control. And that is far more difficult than it sounds, because sometimes we are not merely reacting to a situation, we are repeating a pattern, a lesson, a habit, something handed to us long before we realized we were carrying it. And sometimes the most important battle a person fights is not against another person, it is against a reaction they inherited. Which brings us to a story, not a dramatic story, not a tragic story, just an ordinary evening. A father arrives home after a long day. Work has drained him, traffic has exhausted him. His mind is still carrying the weight of unfinished responsibilities. He walks through the front door, hoping for a moment of peace. Instead, his son says something careless. One sentence. Nothing shocking, nothing severe, just enough disrespect to touch a nerve. The reaction is immediate. His jaw tightens. His frustration rises. Words begin forming before he has chosen them. And suddenly he feels something familiar. Not just anger, memory. Because years earlier, another father stood in another house, his father, and whenever frustration appeared, the response was always the same: shouting, punishment, reaction, no pause, no reflection, only impulse. The lesson was never spoken aloud, yet it was learned. This is how fathers respond. This is how authority works. This is how conflict is handled. Now, standing in his own home, he feels that same pattern rising inside him, ready to continue its journey. And for a brief moment, history prepares to repeat itself. For a brief moment, nothing moves. The room is quiet. The son waits. The father feels the words ready to leave his mouth, the same words he has heard before, the same reaction he has witnessed before, the same response that has traveled through generations. It would be easy, natural even, to raise his voice, to prove a point, to establish control, to react. But something interrupts the pattern. A pause, not a long pause, not a dramatic pause, just a single breath, one moment of awareness, one decision to wait. And in that small space, something remarkable happens. The anger is still there. The frustration has not disappeared. The problem has not been solved. But for the first time, the emotion is no longer in control. The father sees a choice. He can continue a pattern he inherited, or he can create a new one. He takes another breath. Then he speaks, not with anger, not with humiliation, not with the desire to win, but with intention. The conversation that follows is ordinary. No grand speech, no life-changing words, nothing that would ever appear in a book. Yet years later, it is the moment the son remembers. Not because of what his father said, but because of what he chose not to do. He remembers the anger that never became shouting, the frustration that never became punishment, the reaction that never arrived. And without fully realizing it, he learns a different lesson. Strength is not losing control. Strength is having control and choosing restraint. Sometimes a family changes forever because one person refuses to continue the reaction they inherited. And perhaps that is why the pause matters so much. Because most of us think life changes through dramatic events. A promotion, a failure, a wedding, a loss. But often the moments that shape our lives are much quieter. A sentence we choose not to send. An argument we choose not to escalate. A decision we choose not to rush. A reaction we choose not to follow. The consequences of those moments are rarely visible immediately, which is why they are so easy to underestimate. Yet when people look back on their deepest regrets, a pattern often emerges. The angry text message, the resignation email sent in frustration, the investment made in panic, the friendship-ending conversation, the social media post written in outrage. In the moment, each felt urgent, necessary, justified. But urgency has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. And many of life's biggest mistakes begin when we fail to recognize the difference. Most disasters do not begin with evil. They begin with immediacy. A moment where emotion moves faster than judgment. A moment where impulse outruns reflection. A moment where reaction takes the wheel before wisdom arrives. That is why the pause matters. Not because it guarantees the right decision, but because it creates the possibility of one. The pause slows the momentum of emotion. It gives perspective a chance to enter the conversation. It allows us to see what urgency is trying to hide. And that brings us to a truth that many people spend years discovering. The pause does not solve problems. The pause gives wisdom time to arrive. Emotion runs. Wisdom walks. The pause is simply the distance wisdom needs to catch up. Perhaps that is the great misunderstanding of power. We spend much of our lives trying to control things outside ourselves. We try to control circumstances, outcomes, opinions, conversations, other people. Yet the longer we live, the more we discover how little of those things are truly ours to command. People will disappoint us. Plans will change. Unexpected events will arrive without warning. Life will continue to unfold in ways we never anticipated. And in the middle of that uncertainty, there remains one thing that is always within reach: a choice. The choice between impulse and intention, between reaction and response, between surrendering control and exercising it. A choice that exists in a space so small that most people never notice it. The pause. A few seconds, a single breath, a moment that appears insignificant to the outside world. yet powerful enough to change the direction of a conversation, a relationship, a family, even a life. Because the person who pauses is not avoiding reality. They are creating space to see it clearly. They are giving wisdom an opportunity to speak before emotion speaks for them. And that may be one of the greatest forms of strength a human being can possess. Not the strength to dominate, not the strength to intimidate, not the strength to win every argument, but the strength to govern oneself, to remain steady when emotions demand urgency, to remain thoughtful when impulses demand action, to remain intentional when circumstances invite reaction. Because every meaningful change begins there, not in the world around us, but within us. And perhaps the most powerful person in the room is not the loudest, not the fastest, not even the most influential. Perhaps it is the person who understands that between what happens and what happens next, there is a pause. And within that pause lies power. That is the quiet truth.